Good evening. Thank you all so much for being here. Welcome to the 2023 Social Justice Speaker Series. My name is Dr. Carlos L. Marshall, and I proudly serve as the Chief Diversity Officer and Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Director here at the Dayton Metro Library. The Dayton Metro Library Social Justice Speaker Series is an ongoing initiative that brings some of the world's most promising authors, creatives, scholars, activists, and practitioners to Montgomery County. At the library, cultivating spaces for courageous conversations and intergroup dialogue where everyone is free to belong is core to our values of equity, diversity, and inclusion. The Social Justice Speaker Series places an emphasis on supporting diverse groups and change agents that come from historically marginalized backgrounds within the literary canon, publishing industry, cultural and creative scenes, dominant discourses, and beyond. This series aspires to be a springboard for a learning community of social justice warriors, advocates, and allies with an eye towards inclusive excellence. This program was also made possible through the co-sponsorship with IUE, CWA, and Co-op Dayton. And now to introduce you to Lori Rotterman, who will welcome our featured guest for this evening. Lori Rotterman is an Information Services Assistant in the Special Collections Department at the main library and has served as president of our employee union, the Dayton Metro Library Staff Association, for the last 12 years. Prior to that position, she served as vice president, as the steward, and also has served on various committees and teams, including Labor Management Committee, Hay Committee, and several negotiation teams. She was part of the group that led the successful campaign in 2007 to disaffiliate from SEIU in order to become an independent union. The Staff Association proudly belongs to WAGE, the Working Assembly of Governmental Employees, which is an organization composed of other independent unions of public service workers from around the country. She considers the work she does for the union in advocating for members' concerns during negotiations and in protecting their rights during disciplinary and grievance hearings as one of the most important and satisfying aspects of her work life. Thank you again for attending tonight's program, and welcome to the Dayton Metro Library, where everyone is free to belong and free to inform. Please help me welcome our union president, Lori Rotterman.
Good evening. I'm here to introduce our guest speaker this evening. Christian Smalls is the founder and president of the Amazon Labor Union, an independent, democratic, worker-led labor union at Amazon in Staten Island. He is also the founder of the Congress of Essential Workers, TCOEW, a nationwide collective of essential workers and allies fighting for better working conditions, better wages, and a better world. Chris was formerly an Amazon warehouse supervisor, helping open 3 major warehouses in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut during the 5 years with the company. But he was fired in 2020 after organizing a protest against the company's unsafe pandemic conditions. Chris has been profiled by media outlets worldwide, including New York Times, USA Today, The Guardian, The Wall Street Journal, CNBC, CBC Radio, Salon, and Jacobin. He lives in Hackensack, New Jersey. So please help me welcome Chris Smalls. And as a gesture of union solidarity with Chris, I wanted to present him with one of our union t-shirts. It has our logo on the front, and on the back it says, "Your friendly neighborhood library worker."
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So Chris, thank you so much for being here with us this evening at the Dayton Metro Library.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. Thank you all for being here as well, and definitely inviting me and welcoming me to this space. Glad to be here.
For sure. Before we get in, just wanted to kind of do a check-in on you with everything going on in the world with your busy travel schedule, just carrying the weight of social justice in the world, just how are you feeling and showing up in the world as well as the loved ones and close friends around you?
Yeah, it's been quite a journey for me, especially these last 3 years in my life. My life changed forever in 2020. And ever since then, I've been hitting the ground running, especially since last year, our historical victory. Seems like my life's been on a plane. But, for my loved ones, they always been there from the beginning. Even when I was fired for leading the walkout, without them, I wouldn't be here. My community, my mom, my children, my friends, they support everything that I'm doing. And I think that's important for any organizer to have a strong support system and a strong core. That's something that I preach to my organizers, keeping the core intact.
Absolutely. So, talk about your career at Amazon prior to the walkout. How did you start there, and what were your roles and responsibilities leading up to that specific moment?
Absolutely. I started out in Amazon 2015. I became an entry-level warehouse worker. I was a picker. Don't really like the term of that, but my job required to pick customers' orders in a timely manner. The rate back then was about 250 an hour. Now it's closer to 500, about 400 plus an hour. I opened up 3 buildings for the company. I worked hard my first year, got promoted up to an assistant manager. I oversee the same department that I was hired for. And for 4.5 years, I was an assistant manager. I opened up 3 other buildings. One EWR9, Carteret, New Jersey. The second one was BDO 2, Windsor, Connecticut. And my last facility was JFK Staten Island in 2020. I love my job. I used to tell my new hires if they have a gym membership, you might want to cancel it because you're going to do 10 to 12 hours of calisthenics. These warehouses that we worked at for Amazon, somewhere around or over 1 million square feet. You're on your feet all day. You get a half-hour break, and if you're lucky to get a 2 15-minute breaks, which are not really breaks because if you think about the time that you have to walk from one end to an end, you had to be back on station within that time, so it wasn't really much of a break. And yeah, my job once again was to oversee the pick department, which required these workers to pick these customer items in a timely manner, 400 plus an hour. So one individual can touch anywhere between 4,000 to 5,000 items a day. And that was my life, still is my life, very much my life, but that was my life for 5 years, from 2015 to 2020 when I led a walkout over COVID-19.
Absolutely, and you started to talk about some of the work conditions at Amazon, some of the quotas that have to be met by workers, as well as we hear about how those are incentivized and people are also punished for that. We've also heard about crazy stories in terms of employees peeing in cups. The story about the Amazon staff member that died due to heat exhaustion during Prime Day. I think from the outside looking in, some of these stories are so egregious that it's hard to believe that some of them are real, and it can be difficult to tell what's fact from fiction. So tell us more about some of those experiences at the warehouse that you were at, as well as other Amazon warehouses that you have examined and visited. What are the realities on the ground floor of what it's like to be an employee there?
Yeah, well, I can tell you everything you mentioned is true. Unfortunately, the system that Amazon and particularly Jeff Bezos designed is to put profits over people. It didn't matter We saw even during the pandemic when there's a life or death situation where New York City became the epicenter of the world, they disregard the workers speaking up about it. We didn't have any PPE, we didn't have any protections. We were deemed essential workers, but weren't treated as such. And yeah, I could tell you the way they designed the system, and even to the point where they place these warehouses outside of the city, far out where most people don't drive, it's hard to commute to. As I mentioned, the commute to Amazon for a Staten Islander can be anywhere between 2.5 to 3 hours each way. You might have seen in the news yesterday, they just announced for the first time in 50 years, Staten Island is getting a subway. So imagine without a subway, the only way to get to the warehouse is either by a ferry boat or a long bus ride that can be anywhere, once again, 2 hours. So I've seen in my tenure these injuries, as you mentioned, we weren't on the transportation side, but the stories about drivers peeing in bottles is very much true. Everybody is tracked. I was the one doing the tracking. I skipped a lot of bathroom breaks, I can tell you that, for sure. I've seen workers die working for this company. I've seen workers get injured every day. The injury rate, I think Amazon's the leading injury company in the whole entire industry right now in the country for injuries. And when you're talking about pulling, reaching, bending, you know, the fact that they hire workers that are in their, you know, that could be anywhere in their senior citizen age, 70 years old, 80 years old. I've seen it all, along with the fact that they don't accommodate mentally ill, or they don't accommodate differently able. They just, once again, they use you for the profits. And I've seen this for a number of years, especially during COVID, was the worst of it. And unfortunately, there's no accountability. Workers who get injured, even killed, you know, you don't hear about them. You don't hear about these things. Our organizing has kind of exposed a window, ugliness to it. And one thing for sure, Amazon is all about their PR. They want to make it look like they're good. This is why their logo is a smile. They want you to think about positive things. If you look at their propaganda, their commercials, you always see workers smiling. You see workers happy. But in reality, that's not the case. You go to these warehouses, majority of the workers are living off of government subsidiaries, government assistance. Some of them are in shelters. Some of them are even homeless. A lot of my organizers are working 2 to 3 jobs just to make ends meet. They'll clock out from working a 10 to 12 hour shift and go clock right into being an Uber or Lyft driver. You know, and these are the realities of an average Amazon worker.
And you talked about you know, some of the conditions related to COVID-19 and not having protection. So I'm wondering if you can just expand on that for us. What specifically led to that critical moment when you decided to lead a walkout from the warehouse? What were the conditions at that time dealing with COVID? And what were the various different channels and processes that you attempted to go through prior to making that decision?
Yeah, it was definitely an eerie time. You know, you can imagine before the vaccine, as we all sat here and watched the news every day, CNN every day. It started off the West Coast, and it was slowly, gradually migrating across the country. And we watched it in New York. You know, it's coming. What are we going to do? And for me, being a supervisor, having a relationship with upper management, I thought they would listen to me because I was around since day one. I opened up that building. I trained a lot of the upper management. I've known them for a few years now. Had a lot of respect in the building. Definitely was popular in the building. So I was hoping that I'll have a really good conversation with upper management that I could relate back to the workers that I supervise. And when I asked these questions about how they're going to protect us, I was met with rebuttal. I was met with nonchalant answers, and actually, I was told not to tell the workers that there were already positive cases, and I think that was the icing on the cake for me. Before March 30th, the week of my normal day of, clocking in, I was told in my manager's daily sync meeting, a meeting that we have every day with upper management, I was told that there was positive cases 2 weeks prior. And when I heard that, that was my last day working for the company. I think I clocked out immediately, and I began my process of whistleblowing. I started calling the media, as much media as I could, but unfortunately, I didn't get anywhere. Initially, it was all about Trump. Trump was our president at the time, and he was running amok, and the media was eating that up. They didn't care about what was going on with COVID, so to speak. It wasn't until I started to change my direction on how I'm going to organize these workers. I wasn't trying to organize a union, for clarity. I was just trying to tell the truth, trying to protect us. And that was our initial demand, was to close down the warehouse until we feel protected and get the protections that we need. By the end of the week, and mind you, my building has 8,300 plus people from all 5 boroughs in New York City and beyond, New Jersey as well. And they only wanted to quarantine just me. And I knew they were only using this quarantine to silence me. Didn't make any sense. Their excuse is I was exposed to somebody who was positive. And I said, well, duh, everybody was. That's what I've been trying to tell them all week. And when they put me on this quarantine, I knew if I stayed in the quarantine, people were going to die. People were going to get sick. They're going to bring that virus home. And I knew if I stayed home and been complacent, that was exactly what Amazon wanted. So I broke it. The next few days, I planned the walkout. And by March 30th, we walked out. 2 hours after that walkout was when I was terminated over the phone. If I had the chance to do it again, I absolutely would, because I cost the company $4 billion the next day.
Appreciate you sharing that. That's certainly heavy. Walk us through a little bit in more detail leading up to the walkout on March 30th. What did that process look like? How were you able to rally the troops, so to speak? How were you able to convince other people to follow your lead, to walk out? Because arguably with any movement, the most courageous person is usually the second person that then goes out on that ledge to follow the person that's championing that, because the second person is what actually makes it a movement. So what was your process in terms of getting people to walk out and leave the building, and convincing people that this actually mattered because lives were literally on the line?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, the second person, shout out to Derek Palmer, I wouldn't be here. You're right. The second person is still currently working there, 8-year vet, unheard of, working for Amazon in the warehouse. The second person I told, without him and without the folks in the building that I've known and was well respected amongst, I wouldn't be able to have mobilized the rest. The process was definitely stressful and difficult at first. We didn't know what we were doing. Definitely, I can tell you now, I wasn't an organizer. I've been a leader in some capacity because of just the type of person I am. Being a former artist, a former rapper in my high school days, my college days. I always loved to be a people's person, talking to people. But this was different. This is life or death situation. And, I think our demands is what brought people together. It was really simple. It didn't matter what your ideology is. I think during that time, you can agree that the warehouse was unsafe to work. Amazon workers we're not essential workers, as much as people would like to say we are. That was a title that was given to us. But our job description said to have a high school diploma or GED equivalent and lift 50 pounds. It didn't say to work during the deadly pandemic. And to mobilize people, you know, we had to lead by example. I showed up, even though I didn't clock in to go to work. I came to the warehouse every day and I sat inside the cafeteria from the start of shift to the end of shift for 10 hours a day, telling every worker the truth that they didn't want me to tell them. So I broke the quarantine basically to tell the truth, saying that, hey, listen to me, I'm a supervisor. I was told not to tell you that there's been positive cases. And every day the numbers grew. We started off with the first day was about 10 to 12 people. By the end of the week, we had about 40 to 50 people that sat down off the clock, unpaid, and that marched on the boss every morning. So for them to just quarantine me definitely didn't make any sense. And I knew that they were trying to stop us from getting to the entire building. So the walkout was the icing on the cake. That was the way of us bringing the attention to the media and vice versa. The workers that we couldn't get to, the 8,000 plus, we weren't going to be able to get to in that short amount of time. We were hoping that the media attention will wake people's eyes up, which it absolutely did. We didn't know who was going to walk out, how many people was going to walk out. I knew that the media just wanted a story, so I told them. You know, at first I think I mentioned it was 100. The eyes lit up, but when I mentioned and said, "Oh, it might be 200," you know, now we're talking helicopters flying around the building, and I, you know, till this day, I would never forget that moment driving over towards the building, and I'm like, "Oh shoot, what the heck did I just do?" Because you see all the news media lined up, and you see the news helicopter flying over. There's no turning back at this time, and one thing for sure, everything that I did was strategic. Even the timing of the walkout. I knew I wasn't going to get thousands of people to walk out, but one thing I know about working at Amazon, and this for any Amazon worker, when you work in these warehouses, there's no windows, by the way. The only windows is in the break room. So it's like solitary confinement when you're working. You don't see the light of day. You clock in when the sun is rising, you clock out when it's setting. But on good days, good weather, 70, 80, spring days, a worker like me and others, we like to eat our lunch outside. For our little 30 minutes, that little break of peace of mind that we have, we like to eat outside. The media is not allowed on our property. They have to shoot from a distance. So me planning the walkout, I planned it at lunchtime. They didn't know, but they wanted to walk out, they got to walk out. So from the view of it, you'll see, and even if you look at it now, I'm spilling the beans now because Amazon can't do nothing about it. But you'll see the perception of a walkout. You'll see hundreds of people leaving the building as if they were participating in this walkout. And that right there, you know, made the headlines. And actually, it did help my cause. The workers that did pay attention to what we were doing, they did walk over on their own will and told their own testimonies. So that really helped amplify everything. So rightfully so, 2 hours later, they fired me. I'm the only Amazon worker till this day that got fired by a phone call, because they don't do that. They usually send an email or a text, or if you're in the building, they'll walk you out. But I got a phone call, so I'm going to hold on to that.
For sure. Thank you for sharing that. That was very strategic on your behalf to stage the walkout during the lunch break. And I'm wondering too. Well, just for the sake of clarification, when you walked out in March, how long were you actually organizing people and educating people about the walkout? Like, is this a 2-week period? Is this a month?
No.
Or how long did that process?
2 days.
Okay.
We had a weekend. I was quarantined on the 28th. So I had Friday, Saturday. I basically had Saturday and Sunday. That weekend, the walkout was Monday. Didn't know what I was doing at all. but what I knew I was very popular in the building, so we started a group chat. We were so amateur. We started a group chat on Instagram. So we started on Instagram. It was a small group chat. I knew some of the cleaning people. The cleaning people. They were very friendly with me. A lot of them came from my hometown in New Jersey, so we gave them notes to pass to all the bathroom stalls, not to throw them away if they saw them. So it was sort of like a secret operation for the next 2 days. And I think that was the best weapon because, Amazon is waiting for something online. They were waiting for the news articles that never came out. Only one article came out about the walkout. Prior to the walkout, only one. After that, hundreds. But prior to that, there was only one article from the New York Post. And it was so vague that Amazon didn't really know what to expect. They just downplayed it. And the word of mouth, it actually got around. People were buzzing about the walkout. It was circulating back to me that people were going to participate. So I actually felt really good about it until it was time to actually perform. I realized oh, it ain't going to be 200 people. But I was surprised, even the timing, the way the workers came over on their own will, you couldn't have asked for anything better. It was very powerful to see. And when I look back at it, it was kind of like something came over me. I didn't even know what I was doing in the moment was going to be so powerful. I was just going to do what I thought was right. So to answer your question, no, I wasn't organizing in any capacity. I wasn't trying to form anything, no union. It was just more about fighting for what's basic human rights, life or death, COVID-19, and doing what I thought was right.
Absolutely. And you talked about being fired by a phone call. What was that phone call like? What was said, and what was the justification that was given for your termination?
Man, it's crazy because the person who fired me, I trained them. and that conversation was very awkward because imagine this person I trained, he knew how great of an employee I was. Not good, but great. And I've done so many things for him personally. Mm. He couldn't even really finish the sentence. He was like, his voice was shaking on the phone. I just told him to save it. I just hung up. I hung up like 3/4 of a way. I knew where he was going with it. I said, you can save the script. I don't need it. And I called him by his first name. So when they fired me, they promoted him. Mm. He became the assistant general manager. Mm. Oh, don't worry. I got the last laugh because when we won our union, they fired him. So, he for the next two and a half years, this man got promoted off of my firing. And this is somebody that I trained and somebody I helped put in that position. And he knew it was wrong, So the conversation was awkward. And, once again, that conversation opened up the gateway for, I guess, what happened a week after that, which was Jeff Bezos, who was at that time the richest man in the world, making $13 billion a day, $9 million an hour, almost $5,000 a second. For him to sign off on a smear campaign about me. General Counsel David Sapolsky said that I'm not smart or articulate. Ironically, they also said to make me the face of the whole unionizing efforts against Amazon. Didn't know what the hell they were talking about. But I said, that's a good idea. And of course, the stigma of being a black man saying that we're not smart or articulate enough to even talk about health and safety, it's the same playbook that's been around. And for Jeff Bezos to spend that $9 million in 1 hour to talk about me, I knew what we were doing was very powerful. And I said, they're not going to make it about me. I always said that they want to make it Amazon versus Chris Smalls, but it's not. It's Amazon versus the people. And that's when I said, you know what? I'm not going to just sit back and fade the black and fight them legally. I'm going to continue to advocate and organize. So it wasn't until a week or two after I was fired when I made the decision to continue my advocacy.
Absolutely. Thank you for mentioning that in terms of how Amazon attempted to mischaracterize you. For those that are not aware, Amazon's general counsel, David Sapolsky, what he said in notes to top executives obtained by Vice was, and I quote, "He's not smart or articulate, and to the extent the press wants to focus on us versus him, we will be in a much stronger PR position than simply explaining for the umpteenth time how we're trying to protect workers." So talk to us more about how race and class and the intersections of the two has played out in the process with Amazon's tactics as well as the media at large.
Yeah. Well, if you hear that quote alone, that quote alone, not only did it outrage me, it should outrage everybody, because they're saying they rather smear me than answer questions about safety for the umpteenth time. Meaning like, oh, we're tired of talking about this. That's ridiculous. And that's during the pandemic. This is before the vaccine. And this is your $1 trillion company that's the closest thing to the Red Cross, what they called us. And they're telling you that, no, we rather smear Chris Smalls, somebody who's making less than $50,000, and Jeff Bezos signed off on that. You know, that's what everybody should be outrageous about, and it's not just myself. And Amazon plays into these rhetorics. They play into racism. They know by keeping workers divided, they can continue their system. Not only, I pay attention to everything that happened that year for Amazon. Jeff Bezos stepped down. Now, I'm going to just say and take the credit down. Come on now. He wouldn't have stepped down if I wouldn't have done what I did. I'm pretty sure that was a legal strategy. Oh, it's getting a little hot in the kitchen, man. You might want to get up out of here. Had I not did what I did, had the media not went after them the way they did, had there not been no union talk or any of this, I think Jeff Bezos would still be the CEO right now. And he still is, don't get me wrong. He has a different title, but he's still the CEO. And the rhetoric of racism, I was dealing with that before COVID. I was a supervisor for 4.5 years. It only takes 2 years from entry level to become a salary manager. I applied to become a salary manager over 50 times. I was denied every time for no reason. And I trained everybody to be my boss. But I realized not only was there no representation of management, even on the upper level, for the first time in 29 years of Amazon existing, they put a black woman on the S team. That's the people closest to Jeff Bezos. They did that when they fired me, when Black Lives Matter was hot, when George Floyd was hot. They done, and it's not just Amazon, other companies have done the same thing. They put one black person on, they put one black person in leadership and say, oh, the representation is there, diversity is there, inclusion is there, but it's not. The management, upper management at Amazon, 70%, 75% of it is white, Asian, or other. Black and brown management, less demographics as you go higher up the food chain. But in the warehouse, particularly with black management, what they do to us, they give us the worst shifts. They put us on night shift where nobody can see us. They give us less opportunities to get promoted up. And we're not good enough to be on the same level as a decision maker. We're good enough when it come time for us to go talk to a group of black and brown workers that need to be motivated to be productive, but when it come time to speak up about certain things, that memo is saying that we're not articulate enough, we're not smart enough, and that's what really, really, really motivated me to continue fighting, is because not what they were doing to me, I didn't want them to do to anybody else. And I knew that, 29 years is way too long. And with this union in particular, even at that moment, we still weren't trying to form a union. It was the fact that they said it that said, you know what, let me pay attention to it. And so from that moment, I became a student all over again. I said, okay, I used to be a student for Amazon, but now I'm playing for a different team. And that's when I spent the whole year bringing actual Amazon workers to Jeff Bezos' residence, his $165 million mansion in Beverly Hills with 29 bathrooms, his $29 million mansion in Washington, D.C. that used to be a museum, his $140 million penthouse in New York City. It started off at $80 million in the pandemic. He just keeps buying floors. So when workers see how this man is living, where their money, where their labor is going, him going to space, him buying $500 million yachts, that right there was the catalyst for all of the things that you're seeing around organizing Amazon workers right now. And I'm just playing my small piece and continuing to do that.
I want to say, just despite the way that you have been demonized within media as well as by the company, you continue to show up authentically as yourself and unapologetically. And sincerely, as one black man to another, I want to say that I appreciate you for that and want to uplift you in this very moment for that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
From just continuously how you carry yourself and present yourself. So with all that was going around, a lot of people begin to change. At this point in time, you have media, people getting in your ear, arguably trying to coach you in terms of how to talk, how to dress. So for you, why was it important to stay true to yourself? And how were you able to do that regardless of who you might have been speaking to, encountering, what tables you're sitting at, and everything's going on? How and why was that important to remain who you are and, how you came up to be?
Yeah, it was, well, it still is. It's everything. Representation, my identity, the way I look, the way I talk is everything to me. And it's new to everybody else, but if you looked at pictures of me 20 years ago, you'll see the same thing. When I got hired at Amazon, I walked in there the same way. So Amazon knew exactly who I was, and for the outside people, they didn't know. And it's still surreal to me because when I was invited, for example, to the White House, they told me I may have to change my appearance. And I immediately said, without hesitation, I said, well, if I got to change anything, I'm not going. I'm going to represent the community that I come from. And then they said, okay, and next thing you know, I'm on the cover of New York Magazine or something. And now the fashion is being looked at in a positive way. But then there's another flip side to it is, of course, we're fighting for workers, but I'm being co-opted into some celebrity organizer. And, that's not the case. I'm always going to be a fired Amazon worker, even till this day. You can ask anybody around me. I don't even call myself the president. Some people, they do it for me. But I'd rather you call me an Amazon worker before that. And that's because I have to remind myself where I came from. And I remind myself every single day that I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for the folks around me, it wasn't for my community, it wasn't for my lead organizers. Me leading by example is knowing when to lead and knowing when to fall back and take a seat. And the media they'll lift you up one day and then they'll tear you down the next. I've seen it. I'm being attacked now, of course, all different types of articles about my union. It's amazing to see, how this independent worker-led union, who made history and history in over a generation, 100 years, whatever the experts have said, is being dragged in a negative way just a year after our victory. And when I think about the comparisons to other unions, it was always mind-boggling of why it's just us that get attacked this way. And I realized even in my short journey of 3 years, we're not just a threat to Amazon. We're a threat to unions as well. We're a threat to establishment as well. And it's a good thing. We need to shake things up here because if it was working, Amazon would have been unionized 29 years ago. And that's what I tell people when they ask me, like, why didn't you affiliate with the Teamsters? I'm like, well, the Teamsters had plenty of chances, especially in 2018 in my same building, actually. They had a campaign that you probably never heard about because Amazon did a great job of union busting. So the way we organize, the way we look, the way we talk, the way we organize, the way we dress, everything was different. And it worked that way because it was necessary. We had to adapt to the times that we're living in, adapt to the type of company that we're dealing with, utilizing things that we probably wouldn't think of, like TikTok, for example. Probably my biggest weapon against Amazon is TikTok. And you laughing, but it's funny because in our court hearing, every piece of evidence they used against us was a social media post from TikTok. So they're lawyers. Just imagine the $1 million lawyers sitting there all day watching our social media. So I'm sitting there on trial and I'm just laughing. I'm like, damn, that Rihanna song is so good. And I'm laughing and they're serious. But the organizing, the messaging, the way we did it, the uniqueness of it, that's what gravitated to the different generations that we're organizing. Not just young people, old, senior citizen, didn't matter. We figured out a way to build a culture at Amazon that related to everybody. And the longevity of it was, me, myself, being a leader, I had to stand outside of the building that fired me for over 300 days. The bus stop, the infamous bus stop, across the street from JFK 8, winter, summer, hot, cold, rain, shine, I was out there to talk to the workers as they came to and from work. Because there were two or three months where they wouldn't even say a word. They wouldn't even take a pamphlet. But that one time when they're ready, when the workers are ready to have that conversation, if I'm not there or somebody from my union is not there, we miss that opportunity. So just learning the only way to really defeat the company is by bringing people together. We've proven that no amount of money in the world can amount to the power of people when we come together.
Absolutely, and I want to get into some more of the specifics of the actual unionizing effort. But previously you said for a period of time when you led the protest and the walkout and thereafter you still were not thinking about unionizing. At what point did you actually think about unionizing and make that decision, and what led up to that?
Yeah, it was around the time the campaign was taking place in Bessemer, Alabama. We actually drove down there. Me and three other Amazon workers drove 16 hours down to Bessemer, their first campaign, and we tried to pick the brain of the union because they were getting a lot of attention. I know you guys were paying attention to it. Everybody was down there. The progressive squad was down there. Bernie was down there. A lot of celebrities were showing up. Nina Turner was down there. So I wanted to see for myself, like, what's the hype about this union? You know, I I was a part of a union prior to Amazon. I was a Teamster at a grocery distribution warehouse. I actually left that because the contract was so bad. Um, and I didn't even think about bringing a union to Amazon. It wasn't even a thought until the traction started to pick up in the media about this campaign. So when we went down there, we were expecting to be welcomed by the union because, you know, we've been in the headlines for over a year now. Even with my organization, the demonstrations were still making a lot of media attention. So the articles were tying our struggles together anyway. If you look at the old Alabama campaign articles, you'll see they mention me or they have a picture of me or a picture of my protest, and they were connecting to our struggles anyway. It was only right that we go down there and work together to help them get the union, which we wanted to do. My organization, I founded the Congress of Essential Workers in 2020. Their campaign was aligned to the time frame. We went down there as the Congress of Essential Workers. We were not the Amazon Labor Union. And when we went down there, the union, honestly, they didn't welcome us the way that we thought. They actually told us they didn't want me to talk to the workers because the workers, if the workers found out that I was fired, that it would make them even more scared. And I was like, what? That doesn't make any sense. I said I was fired because I spoke up. I'm telling them that they need the union, you know. So my approach was different, and I didn't understand until I started to pay attention. I spent a number of days down there, and I went out to the warehouse every day and every night to figure out, is the union really, really organizing these workers? And they had organizers, which I found out weren't really Amazon workers. So that was one thing I noticed. It was the opportunities that the union were taking or not taking that really was, I guess, raising my antennas about how we're going to approach them. So when I figured out that the union was, they had hired what we call union salts to stand on the corners, stand at the traffic light. I said, that's a good idea, but what about the influence inside the warehouse? How does that, you know, resonate with the workers there? And they have one gas station that I call the hot spot that's across the street from the warehouse, where workers would come grab their snacks, their lunch or whatever, gas, and that's where I met a lot of the workers. I stayed there and I talked to workers days and night shift, and I asked them about the union presence on the inside, and overwhelmingly, all of them was like, we're voting no. This was before the election actually happened. It was days away. Meanwhile, the media, social media was spinning it as if this union was kicking Amazon's butt. Even the union leader, lead organizer was like, oh, we got this. And I was, you know, just like, I'm not so sure. And that was the conversation that was being held amongst me and my members was, I don't think they got this. And I'll be surprised if they win, to be honest with you. So we drove back to New York and we waited. A day or two later, the results came out, they got slaughtered. And we knew. Everybody else, you know, the media went crazy, Amazon went crazy, but we already knew. So we sat there and we said, you know what? Here's when we decided that we're going to fight back. When we found out the demographics of that warehouse, 85% black and brown people, 80% black women work at that warehouse. And Amazon spent 20 million. So that right there, that was the one that was like, oh, okay. It's the fact that they lost the union, of course, but the demographics, and for us to see how poor and decimated Bessemer, Alabama is, for those who've never been to Bessemer, Alabama, if you've been there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's devastating. That right there touched a nerve from somebody who comes from the hood or who lived in the hood. And, you know, that decision to form the Amazon Labor Union happened that April of 2021. We decided that we're going to be independent because we didn't want to deal with politics of, you know, of anything. We want to organize because we think it's right, and not have to worry about, well, you're affiliated with this person, that person, or this union, that union. We say, you know what, Amazon workers need their own union. We're the ones who know the company the best. We're the ones who live the grievances. We're the ones who live the reality of our working conditions. Who better to organize us than us? And of course, the goal is to become as powerful as one of these unions like the Teamsters that's been around for 100 plus years. But they all had to start from somewhere. And this was our opportunity to do just that. So that's when we founded the Amazon Labor Union in April. Actually, our birthday is 4/20/2021.
Right.
Oh, it's the best birthday ever. Trust me.
For sure, and learning from that experience in Alabama, hoping that you can also just talk more about the logistics and mechanicals of filing and becoming a union, because I think our general average American doesn't know as much about union and labor movements as we believe that we do. So just talk more specifically about getting the 30% to even hold a vote to see if staff members want to become unionized, and then the 50% plus one that you have to get thereafter. So what was that process in terms of hitting those various benchmarks, but also learning about that on the fly?
Oh yeah, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy, to be honest with you. It's that difficult, and man, when I think about it, it's still very new. To get to 30% against a company, $1 trillion company with a turnover rate of 150%. So that means I signed somebody up, by tomorrow they fired. And it happened. It literally happened. We signed somebody up, the next day they got fired. And we're losing 2 to 3% of the people we sign up a week. 200 people, 300. It's insane. So how do you combat that? And the laws that we have, the NLRB process, it doesn't favor that. It didn't have this design for $1 trillion company named Amazon back in the 30s when these laws were formed, especially in the 60s as well. So we realized we were up against turnover rate. We had to file, most unions traditionally, and for all my union experts in the room, we all know that you don't file with 30%. You file with the majority, talk about 80, 90%. Now, how do you do that with Amazon? You can't. You can't. You would never do it. So for us, we had to go on with 30% and make up 20% and have the plus one to even get the victory. Yes, it was impossible. We tried. The first time, people don't even remember, we had to withdraw our first petition. We didn't make it. The first time, we submitted 4,000 or 5,000. By the time we submitted, Amazon fired 1,000 of the workers. So we had to start over. Somehow, some way, and I'll just keep this part vague because there'll be some documentaries and some books and things coming out in the near future that will give you more of the details that I'm sharing today. But I'll just tell you this. We were able to refile in 6 weeks. We did some amazing things. I'm talking about, I stayed out There was times I stayed out at the bus stop 36 hours, no sleep, just to get those numbers back. I think our biggest day in one day we signed up over 200 something people, unheard of. You know, we were averaging about anywhere between 10 to 30 cards a day. But now we're up against the clock. We're up against turnover rate. We're up against Amazon spending $14.2 million to stop us. They put our workers in over 3,000 captive audiences. So we're up against all of this. And somehow, some way, we were able to resubmit within 6 weeks. Another strategic point, I made sure that we filed during the busiest time of the year for Amazon, which is coming up. We all know Christmas, holiday season. So we resubmitted during holiday season, knowing that they have a blackout period where they can't really hire or fire too many people because they need everybody. They need all hands on deck. So that was crucial right there. And yeah, we were able to successfully not just beat them, but we beat them by over 500%. There is no dispute in our loss. We beat them. Their loss, I mean.
For sure, and talk some more about Amazon's union busting strategies, what you mean by captive audiences, as well as their strategies to also gamify the employee roles, individuals inflating the numbers to make it more difficult and utilizing individuals that are no longer employed there just to make it harder to meet that 30 or 50% threshold.
Yeah, as you can imagine, and I think I said the numbers wrong. We beat them by over 500 votes, so over 5%. Yeah, the difficulty of union busting, I can't even really put into words. Just imagine paying somebody $10,000 a day. It's the best job in the world to walk around for 24/7 and discourage members on joining the union in whatever capacity, whether it was spreading lies about myself and the other lead organizers. They called us nothing but Black Lives Matter protesters. They called us a bunch of thugs. Of course, they called me a gangbanger. They called me whatever you can think of under the sun. And the union busters that they hire are by demographics. If they needed a Latina, they go get a Latina. They needed somebody who speak Arabic, they go hire somebody who speak Arabic. They needed somebody from the UK, they flew somebody in from the UK. They specifically designed these union busters or assign them to reach the demographics and divide the workers. Minimum $3,200 to $10,000 a day. Millionaires. And some of them came from the labor movement. Some of them were executive members for the Teamsters, executive members for AFL. Some of them came directly from Bessemer, Alabama. They put them on the first thing smoking. They came right to Staten Island. The same union presidents that were down, union busting presidents that were down there in Alabama. They came to our building. And then they basically were playing roulette with them. They were flying different firms in every week just to give them a test to see which ones would do best. On top of, imagine getting hired at Amazon. You don't even know your job assignment. And your day one, you're walking into a union busting captive audience, just like this. And you have this union buster for 1 hour every day for 6 months straight is telling you to vote no. And telling you that the union's going to take all your money. It's telling you that the people across the street at the bus stop are, thugs and gangsters and Black Lives Matter. Every single day. Over 3,000 times they did that. So the odds that we defeated, can't even really put in the word. I can't describe it. I mean, even with that, I'm still leaving out so much more that you can't even imagine. The trauma that these workers had to go through. My organizers forget about it. Imagine working there as a lead organizer during this time. Oh man. And to walk into your warehouse and it's plastered like Squid Games. I'm talking about wall to wall posters from the top, the ceiling to the floor. Vote no. Every station, your cafeteria, and even your bathroom stall. When you close the door, vote no propaganda. All day. So, how do you defeat that? I already mentioned it. There's no amount of money that can amount to the power of people. Now, when you're talking about the way Amazon Union Bus, I compare it to one of the children book, The Tortoise and the Hare. We're the tortoise, and they're the hare. They're the ones that's drilling, running, and we're the ones that are calm, cool, and collective. We're organizing, we're educating, we're bringing people together, we're creating a culture across the street. I'm talking about we had music, we had bonfires, we had artists, we had food every day. We're creating an atmosphere that felt safe. Amazon, on the other hand, they're going crazy. You know, like I said, Squid Games in the building. And the icing on the cake, what cost them the election, was the day they got me arrested. After 10 months, this is 1 month before our election. For 10 months, I've been feeding these workers. I'm talking about I've been out there giving out free food every week, barbecuing all summer, giving out certain things, charity events we done for 10 whole months. These workers, I built a relationship, earned their trust, and the one day, I think the last few weeks before the election, Amazon wanted to ramp up their union busing and get real aggressive. They called the cavalry, they called the NYPD, and they had me arrested along with 2 other organizers, and it went viral. You might have seen the video, it's all over the internet. They had about 12 cars surrounding me, and 4 cops on me, and they arrested me right in front of the building as I'm delivering pasta to the workers. Even the ones who didn't like the union, the ones who didn't talk to me, who didn't meet me, who just heard all the negative stuff, they flipped because they were upset that the company would stoop to that level of even, one thing for sure, they may not agree with everything about the union, but when you bring in policing and you're talking about people that were just trying to help and feed people and take something off of their plate, that right there was a trigger point for a lot of people. So Amazon lost the election that day. It was, once again, the fact that we earned these relationships with our coworkers and our colleagues. It would have been no way we were going to win if we would have came with that, oh, we're the union, we know better. We're the union, we know what you guys need. It had to be the workers organizing themselves for them to be victorious.
Absolutely. And I think another point of education around unionization is I think the general Americans think once you became unionized that was the end of the journey, and everybody was celebratory. And they also tried to leverage the fact that you would utilize your position as the union president for your own financial gain, but you also don't even get paid as a union president because there's no contract, so you're not even collecting union dues.
Nope.
So can you also talk about the process and where things stand at now with Amazon going from getting the 50% plus one votes that you needed into trying to get Amazon to come to the table, and has Amazon in fact recognized you as a union, and are they at the table negotiating to put a contract in place?
Right, yeah, no, they're not. Here we are a year and a half later, still waiting for our bargaining order. And that has nothing to do with Amazon. has something to do with just the fact that they utilize this, this court process and the legal process. But the NLRB is so underfunded and so understaffed that it's hard for them to even keep up with even high-profile cases as such as Amazon or Starbucks. Neither one of us has been able to get them to the table. And yeah, you're right. Without a contract, there's no union dues. And as the current president, I wouldn't collect dues from workers who don't make ends meet. I know what these workers make. I made it. There's no way I'm going to say you guys need to pay towards anything right now when I know they don't even have it. We're organizing workers who, we're raising GoFundMe for just to pay a phone bill or to pay to keep a roof over their head or to even pay to go to work. People living in their cars. So for me to ask for union dues would just, would be redundant. I designed the Constitution, or at least me and my members did, to the point where we wouldn't ask for union dues until we get our first CBA. And the CBA with higher wages, not just a CBA, but a CBA with higher wages, because we're not going to take dues from somebody who's making, who's not making it. And yeah, that doesn't help the union, of course, because our legal fees, as you can imagine, going up against this $1 trillion company, we're talking $30,000 a month minimum. That's just to keep the legal fight up. That's not even to keep a headquarters. Headquarters alone in New York City, our rent is about $12,000 a month. So our only lifeline is the community support. I encourage everybody, especially those who still order off of Amazon. You're going to order off of Amazon, we understand. It's a drug you got to wean yourself off of, but at least donate to the union. Go to our website, go to my social media, throw $5 towards the union. That helps. Every penny, every dollar goes towards our organizing efforts. As you mentioned, I do get a salary, but I get a worker's salary. I'm proud with my worker's salary. I get paid $31,500. That's fine. I get paid less than the Amazon worker, and I'm absolutely fine with that. I believe more union presidents should do the same. Probably why I'm a threat, but that just tells everybody that I'm not here for money or fame or any of that. I can care less about any of that. What helped me when I hit rock bottom 3 years ago was the community, was the people, was my family. The same thing with organizing. My extended family is the people I'm organizing. We're our own cavalry. I say this all the time, there's no cavalry coming for us. We got to stick together. And other labor unions, big labor, established unions that have been in these positions for decades, they got to do better. They got to do more. They got to do more to support new organizing, not just the Amazon Labor Union, but also any campaign from Starbucks, from Trader Joe's, from Apple. These are all brand new campaigns. Some of them are independents like Trader Joe's. They're independent as well. There's nothing wrong with big labor supporting that. It's not a competition. And I think, I think some unions have made it that way, and we gotta stop that. We gotta bring people together and bring new people into the movement. And there's nothing wrong with holding unions and labor accountable as well.
You talked about the community being your lifeline of support. Where can they find that information to donate, to follow the movement of the union as well as yourself personally?
Yeah, AmazonLaborUnion.org, especially on my social media, at @Shunt_down Amazon. No surprise there. That's my Twitter X. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, @Amazon Labor Union. Yeah, the easiest way to donate is if you go on my Instagram, click the link that's in my bio. My name is my Instagram handle, Chris Smalls. You'll find it. And yeah, just honestly, sign up for our news, our emails. I send out emails every other day. Our newsletters. Stay connected on social media. The same way you guys reached out, I try to respond to everybody. I try to show up for any and everything. So don't hesitate to invite me. I don't care if it's an elementary school. I show up there too. We need more labor leaders in the classrooms. We need more labor leaders doing this type of work, educating the community that we come from, so that we can bring new people, younger generation, younger faces into the movement. Because we're at the time of point of no return. The clock is ticking, the planet is dying, and as labor leaders, if we don't take these stances, you see what's going on with these wars. There's nobody that's going to stop us. Labor is going to be the basis of every democracy.
You talk about labor being the base of democracy and the collective solidarity across the labor movement. So talk a little bit more about how big labor has showed up for you and your cavalry or not, and what that looks like inside the labor movement itself.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. We had some support for sure from from various locals, of course. And we did get some donations initially when we won, but that was last year. We need that to be on a consistent level, and that's the thing that's missing is the consistency of the support from big labor. It's not just when we're victorious. It's easy to pat yourself on the back when everybody's happy and smiling, and we just had a victory. As such, we should celebrate these moments, absolutely. But the work, as you mentioned, has just started. This is just the beginning. The contract fight can be anywhere from 1 to 4 years. So we're already in year 2, and we don't even have a bargaining order. So we can't get complacent. So big labor should be striking in solidarity for Amazon workers and striking in solidarity for Starbucks workers. Not just worrying about their own members as they should, but just think about the bigger picture. And I'll give you the prime example I'm talking about is, if the UPS drivers went on strike, that would have absolutely helped us out. They deliver our packages. So the extension of solidarity within labor has to definitely be addressed. And as far as what they're doing, right now, of course, they are definitely keeping the resurgence alive by the striking of the UAW, the writers, the SAG-AFTRA, the Writers Guild. I'd love to see it. I'll show up to anybody's picking line. I have, and I will continue to do so. But in return, when it comes to accountability, we as big labor, and I say we because independent as well, doesn't matter, we need to hold these elected officials accountable. And that's the problem that we're not really addressing, is that politicians, they'll come to our picket lines, they'll come for our union dues, they'll come for our endorsements, but when it comes time to write bills in black and white, they're nowhere to be found. And that's the part that it's mind-boggling for me especially when I leave the country and I come back, and I'm like, wow, I learned something from going to this country, but I'm pretty sure I wasn't the first one in 2023 to go to this country. So what is going on that other labor leaders are not bringing back home? And why we're not holding the people that we praise, and we want to uplift, we want to have allies in the White House and allies on the political scale, but why are they not drafting bills or passing bills on a federal level that is going to help make it easier for the work that we're doing on the ground. And that's something that big labor and everybody in the working class needs to be addressing right now.
Absolutely, and in talking about how the political and legislative impacts the labor union movement, recently in California, Senate Bill 799 would have provided unemployment benefits to workers who were on strike for at least 2 weeks. That was a bill that was actually vetoed by California Governor Gavin Newsom, who's really coined and projected as a progressive coming from California. He rejected the bill, indicating that the state's unemployment trust fund is already nearing a $20 billion debt, and now wasn't the perfect time. Now wasn't an opportune time to address that. So I'm wondering if you could expand upon how do we hold elected officials accountable, and as well as what are you seeing across the globe and in the world in terms of other best practices, in terms of holding politicians accountable that we need to modify and adapt here at home.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the thing. You know, we praise, certain people in labor, they praise Gavin for the things he's done in the past, especially for the state of California, which he has. He has done some good things. There's some laws that we even use in the state of New York, the Warehouse Protection Act, that mirror some of the laws that are passed in California. The problem is, this you can't have 1 foot in and 1 foot out. It don't work that way. It's either you're all the way in or you're not. And I don't know what other timing he's expecting, because if he don't realize time is of the essence right now, then I don't know when he's waiting for. We already went through the pandemic, being in debt. We're going to be in debt forever, and he's one of many. But there's a whole list. I can go down the list of all of them, and I'll just say this: we know exactly who they are. We know exactly who gets the media attention. And we know exactly what has been done and what hasn't been done. And one example that I always bring up is the president of the United States, who just joined the UAW picket line a few weeks ago, who I've had the pleasure to have a conversation with and meet and been invited to the White House. But how can the unions, all of them, in the country be so quick to endorse him? They already did that. You know that. They already announced that. They already endorsed Joe Biden. All of the unions, all of them. The AFL-CIO was the first one, and I saw that. I'm like, wow. He just used the railroad strike on us last year. So we want to keep people in office. We want to get them endorsements and get them elected, but in return, what are we actually getting? That is the question that I'm still waiting for an answer. And I shouldn't be, as the new kid on the block, because I consider myself the new kid on the block, I shouldn't be the one that have to call this out. There's leaders who have headquarters right across the street from the White House. The Teamsters, the Marble Palace, your AFL-CIO, they're right across the street. They can see the White House from their balcony. How? Because I've been there, and I know where they sit. So you're telling me you're this close to the people that make decisions, but there's no decisions being made or passed, or even a thought of any type of the bills that could be on the table. We're too busy trying to scream about the PRO Act. Forget about the PRO Act. What about a card check law? Something that allows workers to join the union. That's easy. There's a number of things, and what I've seen in other parliaments, other governments, not just the fact that their laws are better, but the representation is there. The younger generation, I just told I told you backstage or, at dinner, I was sitting down with politicians that were 22, 23 years old. And they're going to meet with Andy Jassy and Amazon in the next few weeks from Sweden. And Amazon's flying them in to meet with these politicians from Sweden. Now, Sweden is a country that's 80% unionized. Why would Amazon want to meet with them? Let me tell y'all why. Over there in Sweden, Amazon's not so popular. So they fly in the government. What do you think they're trying to do? Butter them up, give them the A1 treatment. So we come over there, we set up shop, we can get under the table and make some type of side deals around the union or, some way to exploit the union workers. That's why they're doing that. But them young 22 and 23 councilmen and women, guess who they looked at last year and was inspired by? So when I sat down with them, they say, Chris, even though we're going to meet with Andy Jassy, we want you and your union to send us a video, and we're going to show him. And that's how you organize right there, because that right there is telling me that they stand on the side of workers. They can care less about whatever sweet deal Amazon is going to offer them. They said, no. What do you want us to tell him? I said, we want him to come to the table. Oh, okay. Yeah. Send us the video. Now, can I go to any of these politicians that we love and praise in America and tell them to do that? Absolutely not. I couldn't even go to my own president. The same day I left the White House, guess what Joe Biden did? Anybody know? He gave Amazon $10 billion to go to space. Now, everybody's like, well, Chris, and people were tweeting at me like, Chris, how did you allow Joe Biden to give him I'm like, wait a second. Not only should I be upset, those are your tax dollars. Mm-hmm. Those are your tax dollars. Remember, I was unemployed. I ain't been paying taxes for the last 3 years. So we all should be mad. Joe Biden gave the richest man in the world $10 billion to go fly to space on a penis rocket. Now, if that don't make you mad, when he came back, what did he do? I want to thank you all for paying for it. He's slapping us in our face, disrespecting us, and we're allowing it. And nobody's saying anything. Everything's a slap on the wrist. I'm past that, and I know people may not agree of how I do things, but as you mentioned, I'm coming as authentic as I can. That's what got me here, and I'm never going to change. That's just what it is. If you don't like it, oh well. I'm gonna tell you now, I'm going to be one of the labor leaders that's going to take these stances. I'm going to be the one that's going to speak up. I'm going to be the one that's going to make people feel uncomfortable, and I'm going to be the one that's going to continue fighting. Hopefully, people get on board. And that's it.
Much respect, brother. And you've been noted for telling Jeff Bezos that as long as he continues to go to space, that you're going to continue to unionize Amazon all across the country. So in closing, the last question that I have for you, obviously we know that this is a catalytic moment in the country's time. You've also stated that you believe that every labor union in the country should be strike ready in 2024. So if this catalytic moment in time is in fact successful, I want you to finish this sentence. In this moment of time, if the labor movement is successful, what would the future of labor look like by 2050?
Is? You say is?
If it is successful, what would the labor union movement look like in 2050, if it's successful?
Ooh, man, well, I could tell you now, 2050. If this moment in time is successful, man, you're talking about a better quality of life for everybody. So when you're talking generational, you're talking utopia for the working class. You're talking about free education, free housing, free healthcare. You're talking about quality of life where you have family time, you have time to spend with your children, your loved ones, vacation. You're talking about, a society where, we control our means of production, meaning that we ain't working during no COVID. We closing down and we staying home and we're protected and we're paid. So that's just utopia, man. That's like heaven on earth. What it looked like, I can tell you right now, it looks like one of these countries I visited. But here in America, oh man, that'll be the best thing. That would be heaven on earth. I think so. I think the community, we're talking less crime rate. We're talking less mental health awareness because there'll be time to deal with that. Less homelessness. If not, we eradicate that. We could solve a lot of world issues just by going after billionaires, and that's what we have to do.
Thank you, brother. Truly appreciate it. Please give us another round of applause for Chris Smalls.
Thank you.